There was a dog in our street that everyone blamed whenever something went wrong. His name was Rusty. He wasn't a bad dog. He was just an old Australian kelpie who somehow always seemed to be standing beside the evidence. A bin tipped over? Rusty. Washing disappeared from a clothesline? Probably Rusty. Muddy paw prints on a driveway? Definitely Rusty. Nobody had ever actually caught him doing any of it, but Rusty looked guilty. And when you're 11, sometimes looking guilty feels like proof. It was the summer of 1997. Back then our street felt like it belonged to the kids after school. There were 4 of us: Oliver, Jack, Noah and Mia. We rode our bikes until the streetlights came on. We played cricket between parked cars, climbed fences we weren't allowed to climb, and spent whole afternoons at the empty block trying to invent new ways to get ourselves into trouble. Jack was fearless. Noah was the one who usually realised we'd gone too far. Mia was the one who actually said it. And me? I was usually the idiot who helped turn Jack's bad ideas into plans. Rusty wasn't officially part of our group, but somehow he always was. He waited outside school when we walked home, he chased our bikes down the old street, he followed us towards the creek, and whenever we stopped at the milk bar with a packet of chips, he'd appear beside us like he'd been invited. We always gave him one, even when we said we wouldn't. One Saturday afternoon, we were playing cricket in Noah's backyard. Noah's mum had gone shopping. According to Jack, that meant the backyard was now legally ours. Jack bowled. I swung as hard as I could. The ball sailed over the fence. Then came a crash so loud that all 4 of us froze. We slowly walked towards the fence. Jack looked at me. I looked at Noah. Noah looked at Mia. Mia already knew what Jack was thinking. Don't even think about blaming Rusty. Jack raised his hands. I wasn't going to. He absolutely was. We climbed over the fence. The cricket ball had smashed straight through the greenhouse. Broken glass covered the ground. Then an angry voice came from inside the house. "Who did that?" We ran. We sprinted towards the empty block without even looking back. Then Jack stopped. Rusty was standing near the broken greenhouse. He looked completely innocent. Jack slowly grinned. "Mate, we can blame the dog." I laughed. Noah laughed because everyone else was laughing. Mia didn't laugh. She just stared at Rusty. The neighbour stormed outside holding the cricket ball. "Whose ball is this?" Nobody answered. She looked at us. Then she looked at Rusty. Rusty happened to be sitting beside a broken garden pot. The neighbour sighed. Of course. And just like that, Rusty became the culprit. We had gotten away with it. At the time, that felt hilarious. That was our first mistake. Our second mistake was discovering how easy it was to do it again. The next morning, a rubbish bin tipped over on the old street. Jack whispered, "Rusty." We laughed. Later, a flower pot broke. Rusty. Muddy paw prints appeared on a driveway. Rusty. Soon we stopped waiting for accidents. We started making them. Jack kicked a football into a garden and ran. I knocked a plastic pot sideways and pretended to be shocked. Noah hid a newspaper under a hedge, then immediately looked guilty himself. Mia kept telling us to stop. "You're going to get him into trouble." Jack laughed. "Relax, it's just Rusty." But Rusty wasn't laughing. He kept following us, completely unaware that the adults in the street were beginning to see him differently. One afternoon, we rode past Mrs. Wilson's house and saw white sheets hanging across the backyard. The wind was blowing hard. Jack spotted one sheet lying in the grass. He jumped off his bike and picked it up.
Then we saw the empty clothesline. Nobody spoke. We all remembered what had happened that morning. We'd been throwing a tennis ball near the fence. The ball had caught the clothesline. The line had come loose. The wind had carried the sheets away. We'd seen it happen, and we'd ridden away without saying anything. Now Mrs. Wilson was standing in her driveway, furious. Rusty did it again. This time, nobody laughed. Mrs. Wilson walked straight towards Mr. Harris, Rusty's owner. "I've had enough." Mr. Harris looked embarrassed. He called Rusty. Rusty came running, tail wagging. He had no idea why everyone was angry. Mr. Harris clipped on his lead. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'll keep him inside until we sort this out." Rusty looked back at us. Mia took one step forward. She opened her mouth, then she stopped. I stayed silent too. We all knew the truth, but none of us said it. A few days later, Rusty disappeared. At first we didn't notice. Then Noah asked where he was. Mr. Harris's gate was shut. The house was quiet. Rusty wasn't outside school. He wasn't chasing our bikes. He wasn't waiting outside the milk bar. Then Mia heard Mrs. Wilson talking to a neighbour. "He's gone." "Where?" "I think they took him to the pound." My stomach dropped. Jack looked at us. "Because of all the stuff we blamed on him?" Nobody answered. That afternoon, we went to Mr. Harris's house. He wasn't home. His neighbour told us several complaints had been made about Rusty. Damaged gardens, stolen washing, knocked over bins. The council had taken him while they investigated. Our joke had become a real accusation. Noah kicked a pebble along the pavement. Mia looked at all of us. "We've got to fix this." Jack stared at her. "How?" Mia didn't hesitate. "By telling the truth." Nobody spoke, because telling the truth meant getting into serious trouble. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Rusty. Not the dog everyone blamed, the real Rusty. The dog who waited outside school every afternoon. The dog who chased our bikes down the old street. The dog who once followed me home after I fell off my bike. I'd scraped my knee badly that day. I remember crying beside the footpath while Rusty sat next to me. He stayed there until Mum found me. I'd forgotten that until that night, and suddenly I couldn't stop remembering it. The next morning, we met at the empty block. Nobody brought bikes. Nobody brought cricket bats. Jack finally spoke. "We tell them." Noah looked terrified. "My dad's going to kill me." Mia looked at him. "Maybe." Then she looked at all of us. "But Rusty didn't do it." That was enough. We waited outside Mr. Harris's house until he came home. When he arrived, I stepped forward. "We need to tell you something." He looked at us. "What?" I swallowed. The greenhouse was us. His face changed. Then we told him everything. The cricket ball, the broken pots, the bins, the newspaper, the football, the laundry, all of it. Nobody interrupted. When we finished, Mr. Harris was silent. Then he asked one question. "Why?" Jack stared at the ground. "Because we thought it was funny." Mr. Harris shook his head. "No." We looked up. It wasn't funny. That hurt more than being shouted at. He told us Rusty had been with him since he was a puppy. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't dangerous. He trusted people. Then Mr. Harris looked at us. "And you kids used that trust to save yourselves." None of us had an answer. Mr. Harris called the council. We went with him. We explained everything again. This time there were no jokes, no excuses, no blaming anyone else, just the truth. After a long afternoon, Rusty was released from the pound. The kennel door opened. Rusty came running straight towards us. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was just happy to see us.
His tail wouldn't stop wagging. He ran to Jack first, then Noah, then Mia. Then he came to me. I knelt beside him. Rusty licked my face, and that's when it really hit me. He didn't know. He didn't know we'd blamed him. He didn't know we'd nearly gotten him taken away. He didn't know we'd been laughing while everyone else was angry at him. He just knew we were his mates. That was the part that broke me. For the next few weeks, we fixed what we damaged. We replaced Mrs. Wilson's broken pots. We cleaned up the rubbish we'd knocked over. We helped repair the greenhouse, and we told every neighbour the truth. Mia was the first to knock on Mrs. Wilson's door. It wasn't Rusty. She took a breath. It was us. That confession was harder than climbing any fence we'd ever climbed, but we said it anyway. Slowly, people stopped blaming Rusty. We were still kids. We still got into trouble. We still rode our bikes until Mum called us home. We still played cricket in the street. But something had changed. Whenever something went wrong, someone would ask, "All right, who actually did it?" And we'd look at each other. Then we'd laugh. Years passed. The street changed. The empty block became houses. The old milk bar disappeared. The road became busier. People moved away. Eventually, so did we. I didn't think about Rusty for years.
Then, almost 20 years later, I drove back through the old neighbourhood. The houses looked smaller, the trees looked bigger. The places that once seemed enormous suddenly felt strangely ordinary. I parked near our old street. An old man was sitting on a veranda. It was Mr. Harris. He recognised me straight away. We talked about the old days, the cricket, the bikes, the trouble we'd caused. Then I asked him the question I'd been carrying without realising it. "Is Rusty still around?" Mr. Harris smiled. He looked towards the backyard. "He died a long time ago." I nodded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled again. He was a good dog. I looked down at the pavement. I never properly apologised. Mr. Harris shook his head. "You were 11. I know." He looked at me. "But you remember?" I nodded. "Yeah." He smiled. "Then maybe that's enough." Before I left, he pointed towards the backyard. Under an old gum tree stood a small wooden plaque. I walked closer. It simply said, "Rusty," nothing else. I stood there for a long time, thinking about 4 stupid kids, one summer afternoon, one broken greenhouse, and one dog who trusted us when we didn't deserve it. We thought we were playing a harmless game. We didn't understand that lying is easy when someone else pays the price. We didn't understand that a joke stops being funny when an innocent person gets hurt. And we definitely didn't understand that growing up isn't about never making mistakes. It's about what you do after you realise you've made one. Sometimes I still think about Rusty, not because he was the dog we blamed, because he was the dog who taught 4 stupid kids to take responsibility. That's the strange thing about childhood. You never know which ordinary afternoon is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Back then, we thought we were just playing cricket, just riding bikes, just getting into trouble with our mates. We didn't know we were making the memories we'd one day miss the most. Because 20 years later, I would have given anything to hear those bikes coming down the street again, to hear Jack shouting from the other end of the road, to hear Mia telling us we were doing something stupid, to hear Noah laughing even though he knew better, to feel the warmth of that old summer sun again, and somewhere at the end of the road to see a scruffy old dog waiting for us to come home.